So Canon came out with the new generation of Canon R6 camera, Canon R6 Mark II. So actually I wanted to get the R6 for quite a while now because I've been using the R5 and C70 as kind of as an A cam, and then B cam was always the R. So I was like, well, makes sense to buy the R6 Mark II now, since probably it's going to be better in any way than the R6, right? So I got the camera without even thinking much, and I sold my R, and I decided to shoot it and check it out in the real test world. And I shot already a couple of projects, and I would love to show you what I got. And this review pretty much is based on my shooting experience, and I have a lot of things to talk really good about this camera, but some things really disappointed me. So right away, let's start with the bad one. As I mentioned, I purchased this camera because I was annoyed with Canon R autofocus, so I was expecting this camera is going to have the same autofocus as the R5 or even better as they claim, but I didn't have the same experience as what they claim on the numbers. I don't know, maybe it was just me, my user error, but I already shot a couple of projects and I still get the same thing. Sometimes, even no matter how I dial my settings for the autofocus, and by the way, there are so many of them, you can literally get lost in like 5 levels of menus just for the autofocus, but sometimes the camera just weirdly focuses on something else. Let's say I'll point at the person, so like I would expect right away to autofocus on the face or in the eyes, right? But for some reason, and it just happens really randomly and not really often, but it will, let's say, focus, I don't know, on something else completely other than the face. By the way, I'm shooting right now on the R6 Mark II. I just have a C70 as a nice prop. I was gonna film on this, but it wouldn't make sense since we're testing this camera, right? So we should be filming on it right now. So I don't know, right now the autofocus seems to work fine. Even if I move, I can see the little eye. The square around the eye, and you can actually switch from left eye to right eye. It's pretty cool what they do nowadays with all the technology. So I'm pretty happy with it. But on my video that I shot for Hey Bike, we shot a lot of parkour, and I was heavily relying on the autofocus, and I would run after the model who was doing tricks and all that. And like there were times when the camera just focused completely somewhere else, like really random. So I would say I was not too happy about it, but I think I finally dialed in my settings right now, so I feel like it was more of my user error. But like I said, it still sometimes happened to me. For those of you who have this camera, I would love to hear feedback from you. Does your camera jump like mine? I don't know, maybe it's just defective camera for me, but I don't know. I feel like the R5 is a bit more stickier, and I love the autofocus on it a lot more. But it's for sure day and night from the R, so there you have that. Let's move on to another very important characteristic in the camera, the dynamic range. That I don't really have much complaints about. It still has the same C-Log 3 that I'm used to in Canon R5, so I will happily take that, and I'm already used to color grading the C-Log 3 and the C-Log 2, in fact, in the Canon C70. And it's for sure way better than the C-Log 8-bit in the R. Hopefully you guys can hear me good. I'm literally recording on 2 different microphones just in case, because there are a lot of boats and stuff happening behind me. But I just kind of got tired of the studio, so I decided to record the video here. Some fresh air and I don't know. But yeah, on paper they claim 13.4 stops compared to 11 stops on the original R6. I mean, as long as you know how to use your camera and to set up your exposure, and you know how to properly use your monitoring tools, which takes me to a different topic. Actually, this camera has, instead of just the histogram, it also has the RGB monitoring, which is really nice. You can check your white balance as well. But of course, as soon as you press record, it will go away. It would be really nice if they actually kept it on the screen, like on something like the C70, where it always stays. But if you really hate that, you can always attach a monitor, for example, like a Ninja 5 or something, and you will be able to have your monitoring waveforms and zebras and whatsoever. So that's not a big complaint, but in future, I would love for the camera manufacturers to leave those things as soon as you press record button. That would be kind of nice. What really have surprised me in this camera is the Lowlight performance. In my testing, in my experience, is a lot better than on the R5, and that is because probably of the higher megapixel on the R5, which is 45, and here I believe it's 24. So the bigger the pixels, the less noise you will get on your picture, meaning in video or photo, and you can actually do see a big difference, like a really good difference. You can also turn on your noise cleaning setting in the video settings of the camera, and it clears out the image even better, but still it is way better than the R5. Actually, I'm making the video comparing these two, so stay tuned for that, and I will be showing exactly differences in autofocus, dynamic range, low light, and all that fun stuff compared to the R5, because I feel like this is a good complementary camera, B cam to the R5, so I feel like a lot of people would love to see the difference. Very surprising that Canon put out 180 frames per second slow motion in 1080, which is, in my opinion, is kind of crappy. But let's say if you're filming, I don't know, sand particles flying around like I did in this video for Tyson for Hey Bike, or water drops, you will not be able to see quality drop as much as you would, for example, be filming human people. Here kind of sucks. You could definitely see the quality loss of like the skin tones and sharpening, and it's just different bit rate. So day and night I will take this feature in camera, but I would prefer probably shooting 1080 120 or 4K 60, where you will definitely have way higher quality compared to the 180. But it would be actually very nice if R5 had a maybe software update to have 180 in 1080, which is really nice. By the way, Sony has 240 in 1080, just throwing it out there. The good thing is, at least in all the modes, we have autofocus working, no cropping, so that is really nice. And the one big thing I'm missing compared to the R5 is 4K 120, but like I said, we have 4K 60 here, and if you want 120, you can still use 1080. Touching on the resolutions this camera can film, up to 4K, no crop, very nice. The only kind of complaint that I have, that being a pro, I guess semi-pro body, it only has IPB codecs, which is nice. They take less space, but I would love to see all eye, a bit better quality codec that I'm used to seeing in R5. But even the R has all eye, but kind of weird how R6 Mark II and R6 kind of reminds me of the RP. It wouldn't have all eye, but it has IPB. But it just interests me how Canon positions all these cameras. The R8 just came out, and it's almost like the R6 Mark II, other than it doesn't have the IBIS. And the IBIS, by the way, here is exactly the same as on R5 and R3 that we used to see. So we do get the wobbles. On the 16, on the wide angle lenses, you will see a wobbling situation going on, which I probably would rather take no wobbling and no IBIS at all. But then again, on the photo camera side, I'll take IBIS all day long because it doesn't wobble, of course, in the photo. It just happens on the video. So it's kind of hard to say. The IBIS is just not as good as some other cameras out there. But as soon as you maybe start on like 24mm and higher, like 35, 85, the wobbling is not noticeable at all. Like it's not there. It's only on the wide angle lenses. So I tend to turn off the IBIS as soon as I'm using like the 16 to 35 lens, and that does the trick. But of course, it's nice to have the IBIS in the camera. But it feels like the R8 is pretty much the same camera, but it's smaller battery. There's only one SD card. Right here you get two SD cards with but yeah, it's $1,000 less, but you're losing out on the IBIS, battery, camera size is even smaller. Also, I really like how Canon added some small little things here and there that neither R5 or original R6 had. And one of them, for example, is red square around the image when you see it recording. So when you press record, you get literally like a red box around it, so you know it's recording. Super cool. I like that feature. Also has pre-recording, which means if you press record, it will actually record like 2-3 seconds earlier. So if you miss the moment, you will not miss it with this feature anymore. This will drain your battery, however. This is really actually nice to see a feature like this in a mirrorless body, since C70 has it, and I would not expect something like that seen in the mirrorless body. In my testing, I didn't get this camera to overheat, and I don't think it's an issue. Honestly, I don't even think it's an issue with the R5, but there are a lot of different opinions out there. I just feel like you don't, what do you want to record for like an hour long to get the camera overheat in slow-mo, or I don't know. Just people overthink, and I feel like in a real life scenario, I don't think these cameras overheat. You would have to stress the body like crazy in order to for the camera to even show up an overheating icon. Also, another cool feature is anti-flicker in video. This is super nice, especially you know how you film slow-mo, and if your shutter speed is not right, you will see flickering. And that happens because of a different frequency in the light. I don't know the actual physics and science behind it, but when you turn this feature on, you can actually dial in your shutter speed by like decimals. So for example, instead of 1/50th of a second, you can have 150.1, 0.2, 0.3 of a second. So you can dial it in like to the point where you will see no flicker at all. Super nice. Small thing, but you can actually see how many millimeter is your lens while you record on the screen. So it literally tells you 24 mm, for example, on the display. But my favorite thing probably in this camera is the photo to video switch. I don't know why on the R5 you have to go through like two different buttons in order to switch just from photo to video. Pretty crazy. Here you finally just have one switch that switches from photo to video. It happens almost instantly. You don't really have to wait. There is no delays. Hopefully they will finally stick it to this method in their future cameras. No limited recording, thanks God. Why do we have a 30-minute recording in past? I have no idea. But the point here that I'm trying to make, these little features that I just mentioned, I feel like these could be really easily added to the R5 and original R6 as a software update. I don't see why would it be hard to add a little red box square, for example, or why would the R5 would struggle to record 1080, 180 if it records 8K RAW. So I don't know, the way Canon segments these features to different cameras is really weird, but it's probably marketing decisions, and we already know about Cripple Hammer and all that fun stuff. But long story short, and the point here is that the way they segment these features on these cameras is for you to make you buy a different camera, which could be even cheaper camera like this one, R6 Mark II, for example, compared to the R5, or even C70 or the R6 in this point, or the R, because it will have a small little different feature, like for example 180 and 1080, that the more expensive camera does not even have, even though it's so much better camera in every other spec. But you're gonna want the R6 Mark II maybe just because it has 180 and 1080, and the R5 doesn't have it. Like, it's funny that it doesn't, and it's more expensive camera. Like, you would feel the more expensive camera it is, you would get all the better features, but it doesn't. Like, it does in the most case, but they have those little things that they sprinkle in different cameras, so other people that already have the R5 would want to spend money on the cameras that are coming out, and they're not the best of the best. And it works. Like, it worked on me. I didn't purchase the R6, I purchased this one because I was like, oh wow, I'll get better camera, probably better autofocus, which in my opinion it's not, and I'll get 180 and 1080, which is kind of garbage, but it's out there. Well, and lastly, this camera doesn't have a little LCD on top, which makes it not even look like a pro camera body, because I feel like all the pro camera bodies have the little LCD on top, and I'm very used to it, especially even like to check your battery level, for example, or to check your settings really quick. Like, it's super useful. It's like a feature that I'm already missing out, but instead you just have your scroll and switch for your settings. But it is what it is. I guess that's why it's so much cheaper than the R5 and other pro camera bodies. Well, should you buy this camera, or is this camera for you, or who is this camera even for? I feel like this is a very good camera that can do both photo and video in very good quality. You will be happy with the image and outcomes, and especially for the price. But I feel like it's not a pro territory, it's more of a semi-pro because of some of the features that are cut off, but it will do the job just right for maybe a good behind the scenes camera, or a B cam, or probably a lot of wedding videographers would use this camera. for small, short commercials, for reels, for content creators, for YouTube. This is a great camera for YouTube. Great autofocus, good dynamic range, love it. But for pro commercial work, for pro photo work, I would probably stick to the R5 for the photos, to the C70 for the video. A lot more pleasing image. It's just there is something with the C70 that I love so much, especially after the latest updates. If you haven't watched my video, it's linked up here. It's just a totally different image you get. It's almost like a movie compared to like sharp image of, I don't know, like a soccer game that you get from the mirrorless camera buddies, even from the R5. I feel like they are over sharpened, or maybe this C70 is not as sharp and it just gives you that softer, cleaner, more expensive look, where the R5, R6, R6 Mark II gives you more like a sharper image, which is not as cinematic. But I would not use this camera as a pro camera for commercial work that I do. I would not use it as a main cam for video work that I do. But if I filmed weddings, did a lot of content creation work around short form of content, I think this is a perfect camera for that. The files are not as huge as on some other cameras that are dedicated just for the pro work. And the price is just out there. It's under $3,000, so it's kind of affordable. I would say it's not as expensive as the R5 or the, let's say, Sony FX3, A7S III, but you get pretty good bang for the buck, and I think you would be happy with it. Well, as always, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully the audio was not horrible as this plane flying by and the boats are flying in the background. But I hope you liked the video. If you did, please don't forget to like. It actually makes the difference. Don't forget to subscribe. If you like more content like this, R5 versus R6 Mark II is coming up. All right, till the next time, peace. Some of the other things that I really liked about this camera and some little small features that they added. Oh my God. Oh man, this is so annoying.